Hello and welcome. This video is all about linear equations, starting from the basics and building up to advanced level. What makes this video unique is that you can skip directly to the level you need help with using the chapter breakdown. By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of linear equations and the confidence to solve them on your own. But that's not all. I have prepared extra practice examples to help you master what you have learned. You can access these on my Google website, linked in the description below. And if you ever needed one on one help, I'd be happy to assist you. You can find me on Fiverr or Upwork using the link provided. Let's dive in and get started. The following agenda outline what I will be discussing in this video. The chapter listed from 1 to 7 represent different sections of the video, and you can easily skip to the part you need by clicking the description below. Chapter 1, I will start by introducing linear equations. Chapter 2 and 3, we will cover rules of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division when solving linear equations. Chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7, I'll take you through the 4 challenging levels of solving linear equations. Now, how can you determine your level? Simple. Try solving the examples on the screen. The answers are in the description below. And for any question you get wrong, just skip to the corresponding chapter and watch that section. Now, pause the video, challenge yourself, and find what level of linear equation problem solving you're at. Good luck. Keep in mind, some math problems combine all 4 levels into one equation. I will create a follow-up video to guide you through those advanced problems soon. But for now, if you master these 4 levels, you will have the tools to tackle any linear equation that comes your way. What is linear equation? A linear equation is an algebraic equation in which the highest power of any given variable or variables is 1. So let's say we have an equation that looks like this. Okay, it's always going to be to the power 1. You have x plus y equal 2. It's always going to be to the power 1. You have x plus y plus z. It's always going to be to the power 1, regardless of how many variables you have in one equation. You have 2x plus 4y plus 5z plus 2f. It doesn't matter what it is, what variable you have, it's always going to be to the power 1. That's what make an equation linear. When it comes to graphing, a linear equation will have a straight line. Could look like that, could look vertical, could look horizontal. It doesn't matter what the line is, any linear equation is going to be a line when you draw it on a graph. There is something that is very important that you're going to have to keep in your mind while you're solving for any kind of equation, whether it's linear or nonlinear. That is, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other side of the equation. How you know which side you're on? When you see the equal sign. Equal sign, that's like the wall. That's what separates the equation. The reason we treat both sides the same is because if you did not add the same number to both sides, you're changing your equation. They're no longer equal. So you want to keep them balanced, basically. If you give one an apple, you give the other one an apple. Otherwise, you're going to have one that has more than the other. That's why whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side, because you want to keep that balance for them to be considered equal. We're going to start with linear equations that have addition and subtraction. Let's look at equation 1 and 2. Equation 1 is addition, where x plus 2 is equal to 4. Equation 2 is subtraction, where x minus 2 equal 4. Let's start with equation 1. Here in equation 1, we want to solve for x. And x is being accompanied by a plus 2. This plus 2, we need to get rid of it because remember, in order for you to solve for x, you need to isolate x. So that means that plus 2 here needs to go away. And the only way we can do that is we subtract 2. We do the opposite of addition. And whatever we do on one side, remember, we have to do on the other side to keep that balance. When you subtract 2 from 2, you'll get 0. That means you're left with x by itself equal to 2, because 4 minus 2 is 2. And that's your final answer for this equation. Now, let's move on to the next equation, number 2. Here, the x is being accompanied by a minus 2. And the way to get rid of that minus 2 is to do the opposite of subtraction, which is addition. So whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side to keep that balance. When you add 2 to a negative 2, you will get a 0. This will leave your x alone, and it will equal to 4 plus 2 is 6. And that's your final answer for the second equation. Now let's test your knowledge. I'm going to give you 2 more equations. I would like you to pause the video, solve these 2 equations, come back and watch me solve them, and see if you get it right. Here are the 2 equations, equations 3 and 4. Go ahead, pause the video, try to solve both of these on your own. Welcome back. Let's see if you got this right. Here, you have a positive 4 that is being accompanied to the x. And you need to get rid of that plus 4 in order to isolate your x. So you're going to subtract 4 from both sides to keep that balance. This will result 4 minus 4 will give you 0, where you have your x by itself. And then again, 4 minus 4 is 0. That makes your x equal to 0. Moving on to equation 4, you need to add 4 to both sides to get rid of that negative 4. You do the opposite of that negative, which is a positive 4. That will give you 0. And then you're going to be left with x equal 8 as your final answer. Let's move on to solving for linear equations that have multiplication and division. Here I have 2 equations. The first equation is a multiplication where you have 2 times x equal 2, and the second equation is division where you have x divided by 2 equal 2. And in both equations, I'm going to try to solve for x. And anytime you're thinking of solving for x, that means you need to isolate your x, meaning x need to be on one side of the equation by itself. So let's look at the first equation. The first equation, I have x being multiplied by 2. The only way I could get rid of that 2 is doing the opposite of the multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide by 2. Whatever I do on one side, I do on the other side. So I'm going to divide by 2 on the other side as well. Now, what happens is when you divide by 2, you actually get 1. Where you're going to have x, and the 1 is actually invisible. You're supposed to have 1 right here, but it's invisible. You don't need to put it. Anytime you're having x by itself, it has a 1 next to it that you just don't write. And here again, you get 2 divided by 2 is 1. And that's your answer. Now let's look at the second equation. In the second equation, your x is not by itself. There's a division of 2 here. You need to get rid of that divided 2. And the only way you could get rid of that divided 2 is multiplying by 2. Whatever you do on one side, you do on the other side. Now, what happens when you multiply by 2? This 2 and 2 technically is 2 divided by 2, which gives you 1. So here you get 1. Again, same situation. X divided by 1 is x, so you get x by itself. And then 2 times 2 is 4. And that's your answer. Now, go ahead, pause your video, and try out problem 3 and 4. And come back to solve it together. Let's look at equation number 3. Here you get 3x equals 6. In order to get rid of that 3, you have 3 times x. You need to do the opposite of the multiplication, which is division. So you're going to divide by 3 from both sides. 3 divided by 3 would get you 1, and then you get x by itself. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that's your answer. For number 4, you have x's divided by 3. To get rid of that 3, you need to multiply by 3. And whatever you do again on one side, you do on the other side. On your left side, you have 3 times x divided by 3. So technically, it's 3 divided by 3. So this is going to be 1, where you get x by itself, and then you have 3 times 6, which is 18. And that's your final answer. Let's combine all what we learned. That means we're going to do problems that will include addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The first given equation has multiplication and addition. The second given equation has division and subtraction. Let's try to solve the first equation. What is the first thing you want to do? Think about this. Do you want to first get rid of that positive 3, or first get rid of that multiplied 2? Remember, we're trying to solve for x. That means we're trying to isolate x. So this positive 3, we need to get rid of it, and this 2, we need to get rid of it. So what is the first step you will take? This is a common problem that students face. Remember when you learned a while back at school that you need to combine like terms? Meaning numbers are together, variables are together. So here we have two numbers, 7 and 3. And we have one variable, which is the 2x. That means I need to bring my numbers together first and then continue solving the problem. I need to subtract the 3 first so I could bring my numbers together. So I'm going to subtract 3. And remember, you do it from both sides because you want to keep the equation balanced. So you're gonna end up with 2x equal 4. After that, you're going to find a way to get rid of that 2, that multiply 2, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So you're going to divide by 2. So you're going to have x equal 2. Now let's look at the second equation. Again, you have two numbers and one variable. You want to combine like terms. That means bring your numbers together first. In this case, we have a negative 3, and the opposite of subtraction is addition. So we're going to add 3 to both sides, keeping that equation balanced. And then 2 plus 3 is 5. And then you have that division of 2, and the opposite of division is multiplication. So you want to multiply by 2 on both sides. And technically, in this case, it's 2 divided by 2, which is going to give you 1. So you're going to get x equal 10. And that's your answer for this one. Now, what I want you to do is I'm going to give you two equations, that I would like you to solve on your own and then come back and work with me on it. Here are the two equations, equation number 3 and 4. Go ahead, pause your video, work on it on your own, and then come back and see how to solve it. Let's go ahead and solve number 3. We're trying to solve for x. That means we have this positive 2 that it's in the way, and we have that multiplied 3 that's in the way as well. You want to isolate your x. That means you're going to subtract 2 from both sides to get rid of that 2. The reason we're starting with the 2 is because you want to combine like terms. And the two things that are alike is the 5 and the 2. What makes 3x different is because it has a variable. It's not a complete number by itself. So you want to subtract that 2 with the 5 in order to combine like terms. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. That will result this to be 0. So I get 3x equal 3. Then what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. Yeah, you get x equal 1. Now let's move on to number 4. We want to isolate x. X is being divided by 3 and 2 is being subtracted from it. And again, we want to combine like terms. That means we have to start with the -2 and the 5. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. That means this is going to be 0. And then 5 plus 2 is 7. And then you multiply by 3 because the opposite of division is multiplication. This will result to a 1 because 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then x is going to equal 21 because 3 times 7 is 21. And that's your answer. Let's go ahead and move on to the next level. Look at this equation. If you haven't done already, pause your video and try to solve it on your own. We're going to first try to combine like terms. So here we have +4, -2, both are whole numbers, and we have variables x and 3x. So we're going to combine like terms where the numbers are going to get together and the variables are going to get together. Now, it doesn't matter which side your x is on, to the left or to the right of the equation. It doesn't matter which side your numbers are on, to the left or the right side of the equation. Just choose a side, okay? So the way I'm going to solve this problem is I'm going to have my x to the left side. That means all my numbers are going to move to the right side. So I'm going to move that 2 to the left side. So to do the opposite of subtraction, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Here, this will become 0. So I'll get 3x equal x plus 6. And then I'm going to move the x to my right side. The opposite, technically, this is a plus x. So the opposite of positive is negative. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. So here will be 0. And here I'll get 2x equal to 6. My x is being multiplied by the 2. So I need to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide by 2 from both sides, and I'll get x equal to 3. That's my final answer. I'm going to give you a problem similar to this one that I want you to solve on your own. Here's a problem that I want you to work on. So go ahead, pause your video, and then come back and see how you did. Welcome back. Let's look at this problem. Remember, you want to combine the like terms. So you have a 7 and 10 both are numbers, and then you have 4x and a 3x both are variables. So you're going to bring your numbers together and your variables together. So let's start with that. I have a positive 7 here. I'm going to do the opposite of a positive, which is a negative. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. Cause this to be 0, and you'll have 4x equal to 3x plus 3. Now I need to bring my variables together, and I have a positive 3x here. The opposite of that is a negative 3x. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides, giving me a 0 on this side, and 4x minus 3x will give me just 1x. The 1 is invisible, and on the other side I'll get 3. So that's my answer, x equal 3. Good job, you came that far. Let's move on and increase the level of difficulty. Let's look at this problem. How would you solve for x in this problem? Take like 2 minutes if you can to think about it. Would you start with addition, or would you start with multiplication? Now, you might be tempted to say, oh, I could just start with addition and move that positive 1 and subtract 1 from both sides. But you do not do that. That's not the case. That 1 is not alone. That 1 is being divided by 3. So both the 5x is being divided by 3 and the 1 is being divided by 3. So you can't just subtract 1 from both sides. This is not a whole number. This is 1 divided by 3. This is 1/3. So the question becomes, how could I make this look nice for me to be able to work with it? What makes this problem hard to work with is that divided 3. So I want to get rid of that divided 3. How could I do that? Since that divided 3 is being shared with the 1 and the 5x, I could actually start with that divided 3 and multiply 3 from both sides. When I multiply 3 from both sides, this is going to cancel out, and I'll get 1. And remember, 1 times 5x is 5x. 1 times positive 1 is positive 1. So I will just get 5x plus 1 equals 6. So what would you do after that? Would you add first or you multiply first? And remember, we said you want to start with like terms first. So you have that 1 and you have that 6. They're both our numbers. Subtract 1 from both sides, you get 5x equal 5. And then you're going to divide by 5 because you want to do the opposite of multiplication. And this is going to be 1. So you get x equal 1. And that's your final answer. I will be giving you a problem that I would like you to pause the video, work on it, and then come back and see if you get it right. Here's the problem. Go ahead, pause your video, and work on it. So here, you want to ask yourself, what do I want to start with? What makes my equation look bad or look hard to deal with? It's that 4. And that 4 is being shared with the 2 and it's being shared with the 3x. So by getting rid of that divided 4, I can make my equation look easier to deal with. So how can I get rid of that divided 4? And the way to do that is you do the opposite of division, which is multiplication. So you're going to multiply 4 from both sides. That gives you 1. And you're going to get 3x plus 2 equal 8. And then you're going to have the 2 and the 8 here Both of them are numbers, so that's what you're going to start with. So you're going to subtract 2 from both sides. This will be 0, and then you get 6. Here you have 3x. The 3 is being multiplied by the x, so the opposite of multiplication is division. So you divide by 3 from both sides. Your final answer will be x equal to 2. Let's move on to the next level difficulty. When you're having parentheses, how do you deal with parentheses? So if you look here, the 2 is being multiplied by the x and the 3. So the first approach you're going to take cannot be subtracting 3 from both sides, because otherwise you're separating multiplication by subtraction, which you cannot do that. You get rid of subtraction by addition. You get rid of multiplication by the division and vice versa. So there's two approaches. Let me show you those two approaches. You could multiply the 2 out. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. Or you could get rid of that 2. So this is a multiplied 2. You divide by 2. Equal 7. Because you're dividing by 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then you isolate your x by subtracting that 3, which is the opposite of addition. So x equal 4 is your final answer. And this is another approach. Looking at the left side, to isolate your x, you're going to subtract the 6 first to get this equal to 0. So you get 2x equal 8. And then you divide by 2 to do the opposite of multiplication is division. So this was going to be 1. So you get x equal 4. Doesn't matter what approach you take. Whether you divide the 2 out first or you distribute the 2, they will give you the same answer. Anytime you see parentheses, try to solve your parentheses first. Try to get rid of your parentheses first. Try to simplify the parentheses first. I'm going to give you a problem that I would like you to pause the video, work on it, and come back and see if you got it right. So here's a problem that I would like you to work on. So go ahead, pause your video, try to work on it, and then come back and see if you got it right. So there's two ways you could solve this problem. You could get rid of this 2 by doing the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So you could divide by 2 from both sides. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Or you can distribute that 2 out. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 1 is 2. And then to solve for x, you need to get rid of that plus 2 first. So you subtract 2 from both sides. So you get 2x equal 4. Divide by 2, because the opposite of multiplication is division. So you'll get x equal 2. And on the other side, you're going to subtract 1 from both sides, because the opposite of addition is subtraction. So you get x equal 2. You'll notice both should give you the same answer.